mute on. Okay, hello everyone. I am Edmundo Tobar, Vice President of the Educational Activities of the Education Society. It's a pleasure to be with you. IEEE Education Society is organizing a new webinar series to promote and give more visibility and diffusion to the workshops, but in a reduced format, selected and organized under the umbrella of our flagship conferences, Frontiers in Education, FIE, EduCon, TAIL, and Edu9. This webinar is of special importance for the Education Society because it brings together two of the actions of our strategic plan. The first one, to promote the publication and reuse of open educational resources. And second one, to be a relevant source of educational resources for our members. I am very pleased to introduce to Dr. Soril Reisman. He is a distinguished member of the IEEE in general, but especially of the Computer Society for many years. Past President of the Computer Society, current Chair of the Standing Committee of the IEEE Computer Science Signature COMSA Conference, member of ETA Kappa Nu, elected member at large of the IEEE Publication Services, etc., among other things. He has also been a member of the Educational Activities Board, and he was editor-in-chief of the IEEE e-learning library. On the other hand, we share our beliefs about the open education movement. He is a relevant person in the area of open education. Dr. Reisman is Managing Director of the International Higher Education Educational Technology Consortium, MERLOT, at the California State University Office of the Chancellor. Soril was elected twice to the Open Education Consortium Board, and he was appointed as a Fulbright specialist in OER since 2014. That is the reason because he's one of the most qualified persons to discuss about the concept of openness, including the use and reuse of learning objects and several features in MERLOT, as for example, the new user interface that he has. This is the main focus on this webinar. Okay, this is all for my introduction. Thank you. Thank you for your participation. Soril, when you want, you can begin.
Hear me?
Yes, but can you speak louder, please?
Hi, can you see my slides? Hello?
Yes.
See my slides. See my slides.
Yes.
Okay. So thank you for having me here. Pardon? Oh. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And you see my slide, why you should care about open education resources? Yes?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I'm going to speak quickly. I have a lot of slides, but this presentation is being recorded, so you can always come back and see it later. Edmundo asked me to first tell you why you should care about education, open education resources, and I hope you can.
A few years ago, a professor taught a climate change course reaching about 100 students per semester. One day he thought,
if I could upload this course online, then not only would my 100 students have access to it, but others as well.
So he did. And this is what happened.
Anna sent the course's content across the country to Alex, who was studying climate change.
Alex found it so interesting that he forwarded a copy to his friend Lulu in Africa.
Lulu was developing peer-to-peer courses with Philip, so they remixed the content with other resources and created a new course about the impacts of climate change in Africa.
Alan, a participant in the course, shared the content with Gabby, who was studying environmental policy in Latin America.
Gabby brought the content to her class, and together they translated it into Spanish. After that, Gabby's professor shared it with his other classes.
Myra, another student, shared the content with her father and passed it on to his colleagues.
Gabby's professor also forwarded the content to David, a colleague in the UK who was researching climate change. He updated some of the data, adapted it to his study, and published an article in an open journal. Researchers from all over the world were able to read the article.
David sent the updated content back to the original professor. By then, his course had reached so many more people than his 100 students.
Years later, many schools had begun to follow the example and opened access to their content.
Governments began promoting the use of open textbooks, and students began saving money on books.
Other innovative universities began to open access to entire courses, making them available to participants from all around the world. These are open educational resources, teaching, learning, research resources that can be reused, redistributed, remixed, and revised.
Open educational resources are accessible to everyone: learners, teachers, researchers, parents, workers, citizens, to you.
This is open education, knowledge as a public good.
Everyone has the right to be educated, yet only a few have access to school.
Open educational resources increase access to, improve quality of, and reduce costs of education. Sharing knowledge is important. Now you know, open educational resources give everyone the opportunity to learn.
So it's very important for us all to understand the importance, again, of OER. There are many reasons why we should. It's an emerging and important concept in the U.S. and around the world, and here are a few more reasons why you should think about OER. OER are materials that are available on the web, and if you're going to go to the web, there's all kinds of stuff. As you know, if you do a search on anything in the web, and we'll get more specific in a few minutes, if you find things, OERs, typically you can eliminate old material and you can find material that's much newer than typically you would have in a textbook, which is at least 2 years old from the time it's been written. OER by definition is much less expensive, mostly free. And finally, because OER is being shared around the world, there are communities of practice with which you can share not only the materials, but also your teaching and learning experiences. I will be talking about a specific community, MERLOT, which is an acronym for Multimedia Educational Resources for Learning and Online Teaching. That's the community that I'm involved with, or one of which I'm the managing director. And this will be the website that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, www.merlot.org. And I've scrunched down the screen. This is really multiple. This is a scrolling screen. It's not quite as compressed as this. But when we get to talk a little bit about communities later on the home page, if you scroll down, you'll see this thing called Community Portals. There are 3 different kinds, but in particular, the one that were of interest to us are the ones on the left, which are the academic community portals. And even more specifically for us, there are 25 different communities inside of Merlot, and I'll talk about those in a little more detail, but the ones that we should care about are engineering, computer science. These 3 communities, if you were to click through to them, would take you to these 3 we call them portals, where you can find a lot more information about the use of OER in engineering, computer science, and information technology. But again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. The overview of this course is I'm going to talk about Merlot, which I've already started to do, tell you much more about the notion of openness, show you how to find open education materials or open learning materials in Merlot and through Merlot into other OER repositories, and then using the Merlot, what we call the smart search, into the World Wide Web. I'll talk a little bit about the quality of the collection of OERs in Merlot, quality of the materials in the Merlot collection, show you a little bit about how we build this collection and how you can help us to build the collection, and then talk a little bit about the international nature of Merlot, how Merlot is used around the world and in any language. So here we are. This is our home page, www.merlot.org. And Merlot is a system, a database system, and its interface that provides access to curated learning materials and curated support materials. These are OERs, or learning materials that you can use. Curated means reviewed by experts. Also in Merlot is a system called the Content Builder that I'm not going to talk about today, but I want to draw your attention to the Content Builder because it's a tool for building open education resources that Merlot will host for you. And as I said, it's an international community of users, of educators, learners, and researchers. It's a project of the California State University Chancellor's Office. Everything I'm going to tell you is absolutely free. There are no costs associated with using any of the resources in Merlot. For those of you who aren't in the U.S. or not that familiar with the U.S., United States, we're located in California on the West Coast. And in the state of California, my own university, California State University at Fullerton, is right near Disneyland, about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 miles from Disneyland. But Merlot is hosted at the Chancellor's Office of the California State University. California State University has 23 different universities around the state, and the Chancellor's Office is the headquarters of all those 23 different universities. And Merlot is a project out of the Chancellor's Office used by all these universities in around the world, and I'll show you more about that a little bit later. Here's a quick history of Merlot. I'm not going to read all of this. Merlot is 21 years old. It was started in 1997 as a small little project that was run off a desktop computer. And over the 21 years, it's changed dramatically. If you go to look at the very last bullet, in just last month, at the end of March, and I'll show you this in a minute, Merlot has gone through many evolutions, and the most recent being just last month. Anyway, through this year, the Merlot collection has 80,000 different learning materials, 150,000 registered members, and about 1.25 million visits annually. Merlot has changed over time, as I've said. Here are different interfaces, and in March of 2 weeks ago, we released another version of Merlot, and you saw this before, but here's the home page of the new Merlot. So let's talk for a moment about what is open. I'll get back to the specifics of Merlot in a minute. There are a number of categories of open. You can see here I've listed 4 of them. One is open source, open access, open hardware, data, open data, etc. And the 4th one, which we care about, is open education resources. These are not the same. When we use these words, we have to be very careful so that we don't misuse the words in the wrong context. Open source refers to software and just software. So when we talk about text, we mean what we want to say is we want to call this stuff open access. The first bullet there, when we talk about open access, we're talking about print materials, typically journal articles or online journal articles or online textbooks. When we talk about open access, we mean free access to these kinds of materials that cost no money at all. So for example, the Digital Library Explorer is not an open access digital library because there's a registration fee. Typically, people say that text that you find on the internet should be free because everything on the internet is free. So that's one of the arguments for this open access movement. Open access specifically started in Britain, and now it's a worldwide movement. And when we say open access, we only mean text. IEEE has an open access set of policies. If you go to the IEEE.org and search for open access, you'll find a lot of information about what IEEE is doing in open access. Open education resources, a term first developed in a forum, a UNESCO forum, 16 years ago. And pretty much it means materials that are free that you can find on the web that you can use and reuse, and has a license that you can look at, a license that tells you what you can do if you discover something on the web. So here's some different kinds of OERs. Online courseware, which would be like this one that you'll find on the web after it's recorded. People will be able to access it. Presumably, I'm not sure what the policy is that Edmundo will have, but it'll be free for people to look at. So that'll be, this course will be an OER. Online textbooks, even though online textbooks are open access, they can still be an open education resource. Then we have a third kind I want to talk about, which are online learning objects. A learning object is a very specific kind of OER. And if you do a search on the web, you'll find that a learning object is, if you look at the very first bullet, it's a very small unit of instructional material. Typically, not a course, not a whole course, but maybe a module in a course. And you can see learning objects are self-contained. They must have metadata. Each learning object has to have metadata. I'll describe that in a minute. You can take learning objects, put them together to form bigger learning objects. And a learning object is something that I can develop that you can take and reuse in your course. There are believe it or not, many standards. There should be only one standard by definition of the word standard, but there is a set of standards in the world about what learning objects ought to be and how they should be described. Even IEEE has a learning object standard. One of the things common to all the definitions, some of the things common to learning objects is they're all digital. They all should be usable or reusable by anybody who finds them. They're used for teaching or learning. So here are all these different definitions, and you can see that they all contain, even though they're different standards, they all contain these characteristics. Here's an example of 3 different learning objects. The thing in the yellow is the learning object itself, and I'll show you an example in a moment. The things around, the little green circles, are metadata. These are descriptors of the learning object. Here we've taken 3 different learning objects, aggregated them, and formed a brand new learning object. So the one all the way around, the circle all the way around, is a brand new learning object. More specifically, if you look at the learning object, that's kind of a little bit on the top left corner here, you can see it's a chapter 1 from an open access text. That's the learning object. And the metadata around it this is a chapter meant for higher education. Its format is a PDF. It is meant for computer science instruction, and it's written in English. Those are the 4 metadata. If you look around and you look at the other 2 learning objects, the one that's in green, this is a simulation. It's written in Java. It's meant for English. It's meant for higher education, and it's meant for IT/IS curricula, etc. You can take and the third one there in yellow is a set of test items, and you can see the metadata for that. You can take those 3 learning objects discovered on the web, put them together to form a whole new learning object, which might be a 1-week curriculum that you're teaching online. So you can put these 3 things together and form the curriculum for a course that you might be teaching. Ownership. Who owns things that you find on the World Wide Web? If you develop something and put on the World Wide Web, what are your rights? Can you control what people do with this stuff? If you're an instructor and you discover something, what are you allowed to do with it? And if you've developed or found something in one country that somebody else has written in another country, can you do whatever you want in your country that maybe they didn't intend for you to do in their country? And how do you know any of this if you find something on the World Wide Web?
Have you ever wondered how to download and share digital content legally? How do you let people know that you want them to reuse your own work? Creative Commons licenses can help you do both. We'll show you how. Our world's exploded with digital opportunities. Now we can communicate, share, and work together using the exceptional distribution network that is the Internet. Information and content can fly between us in exciting new ways. But it's important to know that when something is created, say a photo, a document, or a music track, it's automatically protected by copyright. Copyright enables people to say who can share and reuse their creations. You must always obtain someone's permission before sharing or reusing their work, even when it's posted online. But what if a creator wants everyone to use their work, without the hassle of granting permission over and over? This is where Creative Commons can help. Creative Commons provides licensing tools that are free to use. You can apply a license to your work, which refines your copyright and streamlines how you give permission. Zach here downloads a photo called CC Kiwi that he wants to use in his science project. He can do this without asking Kerry, the photographer, first, because she's already given permission with a Creative Commons license. Kerry's license is legally robust, but easy for Zach to understand. She's told the world, including Zach, that they can use CC Kiwi as long as they acknowledge her as the original photographer. There are more rules Kerry could have included. Creative Commons licenses are made up of licensed elements. You can think of them as rules, and each have their own special symbol. This is attribution. It means that Zach must acknowledge Kerry when he publishes his science project containing her photo. This is non-commercial. It means no one else but Kerry is permitted to make money from CC Kiwi. Tim wants to print the photo onto T-shirts and distribute them to friends. He can do this, but he must not sell them. This is no derivatives, and it means that Kerry hasn't given permission to change her photo. Kate can use CC Kiwi on her design blog, but will need to ask Kerry before retouching or mixing up the image. And this is share alike. It means new creations that use CC Kiwi need to carry the same license. Jack incorporates his own remix of CC Kiwi in his video installation, but he must share the work under the same terms that Kerry has. Each Creative Commons license gives permission to share and includes the attribution rule. So people who find your Creative Commons licensed work are automatically allowed to share it, but are required to acknowledge you if they do. The other three license elements are optional, and you can choose which ones to add, if any.
So you can. That's a very good video. If you want to know more about Creative Commons, you can go to their website. If you can see the URL right here, creativecommons.org. There are 6 different combinations of Creative Commons license, and you can see them all here. One of the things they all have in common is this term attribution, which means whatever the license is, if you are going to use or reuse a material with a Creative Commons license, you must cite the originator of the material that you're going to be reusing. Same as if you were going to be putting a reference into a paper that you're writing, you have to appropriately quote or reference the paper that you're incorporating into your own work. Now I want to get to Merlot and search, how do you find OERs? Well, as I said, this is the Merlot homepage. And I want to show you the search field, which is at the top of the Merlot homepage. I'll have a closer look. In the search field, there are a number of things you can type. You can type a keyword or a URL, an ISBN number, or an author's name. let's have a look at, let's do a search in the Merlot repository. And I had mentioned there are 80,000 learning objects in the Merlot repository. They are curated by subject matter experts, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's do a search into those 80,000 for the word circuits. And you can see here that there are more than 700 learning objects that have the keyword circuits in them. You can either look at the hit list this way, or you can look at it in list view, in which case it would be this way, a scrollable hit list. But let's go back to the original. So there are 700 results with the word circuits in them. On the left-hand side of the Merlot hit list page, there are different ways to filter the results, all these 700 things. Now let's have a look at one of them. And what we do by clicking on one of them is we go to what we call the material detail page. Here's the material detail page. There's one of these for every single one of the 80,000 learning materials in Merlot. I've circled in red some of the things you can see about every single material. In the top right-hand corner, circled in black, is information about the quality of this learning material. Many things, most things in the collection are peer-reviewed by subject matter experts, and these 5 stars are the stars for this material, is the rating of this material by 3 subject matter experts who have looked at it. There are also user ratings, and some would argue that's more useful than peer review, but this is like the Amazon user ratings. And then the third thing there is comments. Every single material in Merlot has a thread of discussion associated with it. So when people go to look at this material, for example, they can start initiating a discussion about the goodness or the badness of the material, how they used it, how they shouldn't use it, recommendations, etc. And I'm going to go look at these little these big red things that I've marked before. You can see there's more detail about the nature of this material. There are other materials like this one that others have looked at, etc., etc. These are things you can explore yourself if you do a search into Merlot. Now, Merlot is not, we don't really host all of these materials. We host the metadata. So when you go to the material, you're actually going to leave Merlot and go to somewhere in the cloud where the actual learning material exists. And here is that particular learning material somewhere at the University of Colorado, Boulder. We're back to the hit list page of the 700 odd materials. If you want to filter these 700 materials and you want to see only animations, if you click there, there are, I can't read the number, but all we'll see are animations that have the keyword circuit in them. You can also, because there are multiple disciplines in Merlot as metadata, you can filter down, and you can get right down into electrical engineering to see which learning materials have the keyword circuit in them that are only for the discipline of electrical engineering. But we're not going to look at that right now. So Merlot has 3 places that you can search. You can search the Merlot collection. You can search other libraries similar, but of course not as good as Merlot. And finally, you can search the World Wide Web, but it's not just a search of the World Wide Web. Let's have a look at one of these at a time. If you were to click other libraries for the keyword circuits, you can see on the left-hand side, the big circle, it shows filter by library. So the hit list that you see is all this list of libraries on the left where the word circuit appears in those different libraries. IEEE Computer Society Digital Library is one of the libraries that is searched, and if you were to click on that, you would find these, however many there are here, 8 or 9 different materials in it's called the CSDL, that have the word circuit in them. And if you were to click to see this one, it would take you also to a material detail page. Now, because this is not in the Merlot collection yet, per se, there's not a lot of detail about this. You could, if you used it, you could, as a user, submit more information about this material so others can see it after you've used it. Anyway, we can go to the material, and that will take you to the digital library, which describes this particular material. Now, this is, of course, an article. Whether it's free or not is sort of a different matter. The stuff in the Merlot collection, that you can sort by whether it is no cost or not. But when you go into these other digital libraries, you can't necessarily do that. The third place to search is the World Wide Web. And here we've done a search of the World Wide Web for the word circuit. And on the bottom, you can see this little note that's flashing. And it says that this search uses a proprietary search algorithm that we've developed that searches the web not just like a Google search, but the World Wide Web for teaching and learning materials based on the profile, typical profile of a Merlot user. On the left-hand side, you could, in fact, redo the search under filters so that if you wanted to search the World Wide Web for things with particular kinds of Creative Commons licenses, you could do that. We have advanced search, and advanced search, again, this is off the home page, takes you to a page that has a list of all the different combinations of metadata. You can check any combination of any of these things to do a search of the Merlot collection. Another thing you can do is very interesting, is what we call the ISBN search. If you know the ISBN number of a textbook, you can type it into the search bar, or this other place that we have, you can type in an ISBN. And what you'll get is a list of materials, learning objects, in the Merlot collection whose profile matches the profile of the textbook whose ISBN you put in. And these are all kinds of materials, different animations, and you can see on the left-hand side these different, we call them material types. So many, many different kinds of material types, including open access textbooks. So if you were to type in the ISBN of a textbook that costs your students $300 into the search bar, you might find an open access free textbook in the Merlot collection that you could use, that your students could use, in place of the $300 textbook. The other thing you can do here is search for supplementary material. So you can type an ISBN number in here and find animations and simulations, et cetera, different, and even open open education resource courses to supplement the textbook. That's how we search the Merlot collection. I want to tell you now about, I mentioned that we have 25 different academic disciplines. Each one of those disciplines is managed by volunteer faculty from around the world who constitute an editorial board who curates the material. If you look at, again, go to the home page and you click over here, it will take you, as we've seen before, over to this list of 25 different academic disciplines for which we have editorial boards. A few words about what's an editorial board. They're organized like a journal editorial board. They have an editor, they have a set of board members and peer reviewers. That editorial board is a set of subject matter experts. What they are there for is to review and curate the submissions to the Merlot collection. It's a little different than a journal in some ways. Of course, they don't review research articles. They review learning objects. They do peer review. We teach them how to peer review. But more specifically, if you were to click on the stars that show peer review in the material detail page, you actually see the peer reviews that these folks have put together. This is different than a journal article. You'll never see the journal article peer reviews. You only see the journal article itself. Here we actually publish on the website the review that these people do. That final review that gets published, our reviewers work with the author of the learning material to fix it, make it better and better and better, and then finally the review itself is published. I want to draw your attention again. I said earlier, I don't want to talk about engineering, but I want to talk about computer science and IT. Those are our most recent editorial boards. And they have been endorsed by the Computer Society and the Education Society. And they have been modeled after these two curricula, computer science and IT, CSAB guidelines. The editor, there's an editor in charge of every editorial board. The editor for the IT board is Edmundo Tovar, and the editor of the computer science, who's our host today, and the editor of the computer science board is Henry Chan at Hong Kong Polytechnic. So these are, we are all colleagues together, not only through this Merlot, but also through the Computer Society and the Education Society. You might ask, where does all this stuff come from, that we have those 80,000 materials? They are almost all contributed by people like you who are using learning materials in their courses, who are developing learning materials for their courses. So that's where most of this stuff comes from. Now, in order to contribute anything to Merlot, and I'll show you where in a minute, you have to become a member. In the top right-hand corner of every screen, it tells you how to become a member. It's free. Everything here is free. It's paid for by the taxpayers of California. And so becoming a member is really kind of simple. Just a few fields you have to fill in. There's no spam because we don't sell the list of learning of members. It's very closely held. Once you become a member, not only there's a lot you can do, but you can also add materials, as I said a few minutes ago. And here's where you do the adding of materials. We're back to the home page. There's that little bar there, but you click there, and we can look over here. If you click there, you're taken to a screen, and these are about 8 or 9 things that you have. These are the metadata that describe a learning object. So in the top left corner, there's a learning object that you want people to see. It sits on the World Wide Web somewhere. You'd have to give it the URL, give it a title, a brief description, etc., etc. And once you hit submit, that learning material goes into the collection. If it's in the discipline, one of the 25 disciplines, an email goes to the editor of the discipline that there's a new learning material. That editor looks at the learning material and decides, is this appropriate for the Merlot collection? Is it a learning material? If it is it in my discipline? If it is, then I might want to get it reviewed. If it's not in my discipline, the editor will send it to a different editorial board editor, and the process begins again. The international nature of Merlot. First of all, it's an international utility. We can operate in virtually any language. We're in almost 200 countries in the world. Almost. There are only about 200 countries in the world. But anyway, you can submit material in any language at all. You can use the keyboard of any country to search in Merlot. Merlot web pages can be translated into any language using Google Translate, which is integrated into Merlot. I'll show you that in a minute. And I want to comment on that. The Google Translate works everywhere, but it does not work in the People's Republic, in China, mainland China, because Google software is blocked over there. So when we get a request from mainland China to use Merlot, and we do get lots, we detect that the request is coming from China, and we disable the Google Translate for Chinese users. However, I was just over there a week or two ago, and we're working on with some Chinese developers on some workarounds so that Chinese users also can use Google Translate. The fourth bullet there, I want to say that Merlot itself is integrated is integrable through a set of APIs or web services into any web application. So you can interface Merlot into anything, in any language, etc. So for example, Merlot is integrated in almost all the learning management systems. It's in Moodle, it's in Blackboard, it's in WebCT, etc. It's available through those. If you have your own proprietary web application at your own institution, through our web service, you can integrate Merlot into that website at your own institution. In Chile, where they speak mainly in Spanish, they have Spanish websites. They have integrated our web services into their home pages. Almost all the Merlot functionality is available in Spanish through their website, through their Spanish website. Same is true in Israel. Everything there is in Hebrew. They've integrated Merlot, all the Merlot functionality, into their Hebrew websites, so that Hebrew-only users can access Merlot in Hebrew through the website. Here's an example. Here's what you see in terms of translate if you are not in the People's Republic of China. Down there in the bottom, using the Google Translate, there's that. If you were to select Chinese, every subsequent page that you search through in Merlot will be in Chinese or whatever language you choose. So those are the basics of Merlot. There is tons more. We put on many day workshops and we delve into many other things. The Content Builder, for example, which is a learning object building system, completely different from searching for learning objects, is, for example, another whole day's discussion. Anyway, there's a lot more in Merlot, as I said. Every single thing is free. If you're interested, www.merlot.org, and that's the end of this presentation. So thank you. If you need to reach me via email, it's sreisman@computer.org. Okay, so somehow I have to get out of here. Find the cursor. Okay, Edmundo.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so now it's time. We have 10 minutes in order to ask questions. So everybody that wants to ask is writing in the chat. Can you review the chat?
Should we ask in the chat? Okay.
Yes.
Hello, Peter.
I don't know. I can ask. I can speak, or I can ask a question in the chat. Hello. What? Okay.
Okay. I think better to write it in the chat, please.
Okay. Well, I'll write it in the chat. Right.
So you want, I see Ernesto wants us to send some examples of Moodle integrations of Merlot links or reference contacts. Barbara, my development manager is on here right now, and we'll follow up. Edmundo, how will we send this information to everybody?
Yes, all the webinar, the presentation will be published in our website.
These two questions, both of these questions, this one about Moodle integrations is not an answer I can give right at this moment. It's a longer explanation.
Actually, could I say something?
This is Barbara Sperling. Barbara is my development manager. Her team develops and supports the website, the system. So, Barbara, if you want to talk about the Moodle.
Yeah, I just want to say Merlot did not develop the Moodle integration, but if you have Moodle installed, there is an option from within Moodle that you just enable the Merlot search. You contact the Merlot webmaster at webmaster@merlot.org, and we'll send you a link to sign up for a key. It's really as simple as that. So you need to just enable the Merlot search through Moodle, which is already integrated, and we'll give you a key to search.
Thank you, Barbara.
There's another question here. Let me see here. Chile. Barb, do you have the URL for them?
Let me look right now. It's in a cap.
That's the acronym for the Chileans. Barb, if you can find that.
I did. Let me see, put it in the chat. I don't know if this is getting sent to everybody or to, I just put a link in there. It's, again, the INACAP organization in Chile is the ones that created this website, and they use our web service. Merlot did not build this site, but we work with them.
It's not coming through to everybody, Edmundo.
Oh.
Sorry?
Oh, you know what? My mistake. Here, I'll do it again. There.
Thank you, Barbara. I
Chilean
got it
reference.
now.
The degree of awareness of open education in the last few years. Good question. I have to say that initially, don't forget, it was started. The term was defined in 2002, so it's been around a long, long time. It's only more recently that it's become more widely used. In the United States, turn off mute their microphone.
Yes.
In the United States, OER has tended more recently to become a more popular term, specifically meaning open textbooks. It doesn't have the broader definition that I talked about a little earlier. In the U.S., higher education now, and even this Congress that we have, is concerned about the high cost of textbooks. So when they talk about open education resources in the U.S., mostly they're talking about textbooks, how to bring down the cost of textbooks. In the rest of the world, OER has the more broad definition that's a textbooks, but also all these other kinds of materials. There's been, initially, there was concern about what's the quality. If you find stuff on the web, and there's no way really to know the quality of what you find. That's changing. People are starting to understand that if they go to repositories like ours, that they have a sense of confidence in the reported quality of the open education resources. So I'd like to say that the growth is exponential upward, but it's not. But it's certainly increasing. People are much more aware of the existence of OER today than they were 5 years ago, and more people are starting to use OER. There are a lot of reports that I shouldn't say a lot. There are some reports that are already showing that there's an increased awareness and increased utility of OER. The unique thing about the Merlot collection is that it is truly peer-reviewed. We have rubrics for peer reviewing learning materials. It's not just, do you like this or don't you? It's very specific with regard to the utility of the material in instructional environments, etc. So coming to Merlot to find something where you see the reviews, where you see user experiences and ratings, where you see user commentary and discussion, you have an even higher degree of confidence in the quality of what you find there. One other thing, there are a number of collections around, and we search those, but many have come and gone over the last 2 decades. We're still here, and we're still improving this system. As you can see, we just released a new system just 2 weeks ago. So Merlot, I mentioned that there are many communities, but we are the significant community, we believe, and we are free. I don't understand this, Peter, your question.
Well, we've been doing computer science education library, and we discovered that quite a number of resources are supposed to be connected through protocols like XAPI or LTI2. So it is a link, but the resource, in fact, requires not just be posted as a link, but be connected. And the trouble, there are so many protocols. So we've been struggling to figure out how to post those resources, and at the end, actually, we didn't solve the problem, so we kind of ignored them. But you have much more experience than our computer science education lab. Maybe you have some solution for that.
I'm not sure what the nature of the connection functionally.
LTI is the protocol for learning management system to pass data about the student and get kind of report back, right? Like score or result.
Right. What is it? Canvas. Barbara, you want?
Oh yeah, Canvas using that, but also Blackboard. Almost every LMS now using that. But how to store, collect resources is really a pain.
Well, there are two things we do in terms of other collections. One is, as I said, we have web services that allow people to search our repository, including Canvas via LTI.
Now,
the other thing that we do is that we have methodologies and services for importing in batch metadata for other repositories. And we do that under a certain set of business circumstances. So we can include in our referatory, because we're a referatory, right? We only host metadata. We have methodologies for importing metadata from other libraries. If we want to, this isn't the forum for getting more detailed into the LTI connectivity, but we can offline, if you want, explore some of these opportunities, if you like.
Great, thanks.
Where are you located, Peter?
Pittsburgh.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Too far away.
Is winter over there yet? David, this is...
we probably need to talk a bit more details, but not now, of course. Thanks.
Yes. There's another question here from David Filion. Barbara, this went privately. He's found websites that no longer exist when he does a search. What should I do? Yes, there is a link there that says if there's a problem, click here. And secondly, you can send immediately, the webmaster sees those immediately. The other thing you can do is send an email to webmaster@merlot.org. And now you've asked, what does Merlot do to assure these links are valid? Well, Barb, you can answer that more after me if I've missed something, but we run a link checker every single month. In addition to addressing reported broken links, we run a link checker every single month against all the materials, all the metadata, all the URLs in the website. And when we find broken links, like you're talking about here, we have staff who pursue the link to find out, to determine, is it really broken? If it isn't broken, where is that material today? Perhaps it's been moved to a different server. And then they track it down and correct the link. The number of broken links that we find every month, I should say, if they're not able to find that material anymore, we remove that material from the collection. The number of broken links we find, new broken links every month, is sort of in the 100 to 200 every month, which is a very tiny percentage of 80,000 and growing. So, Ernesto, does that answer your question?
No.
Okay. How can a professional society, who's this from? Edmundo Tovar, I know him. How can a professional society combine to provide services to its members versus services to the global society through an open approach? You're wanting me to develop a strategic plan right here and now I'm not sure. I think this question deserves more offline discussion. It's a big question. This is not a trivial question. Edmundo.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah, I hear you. Sure.
Okay. Yes, I am thinking about a professional society has specific interest to give services and benefits to their members. So, how can be included an open approach in order to offer global services to all the society in general? I don't know how to explain it.
Yes.
I think
let me take a shot at trying to answer your question. But I have to answer it from a Merlot perspective because this is the world I live in, not a broader OER. We consider Merlot a gateway to all OERs. It's not just our 80,000 materials. It's also to all those other OER libraries, also to other OERs on the World Wide Web. So if you agree, please agree for the sake of this argument, this discussion, that Merlot is actually a place where we can provide access to our professional societies. There are other places too, but at least as a starting point, Merlot. We have our professional society cares about engineering, computer science, computer engineering, electrical engineering, etc. And so, for example, the computer society, if we'll just look at that alone, we have in Merlot developed, as I said before, with Henry Chan, same as you have done, a portal for computer science and OER. That portal, and you've done the same for IT/IS. Those portals could be promoted throughout the IEEE Education Society, IT, computer science, etc. Those are opportunities for people in their respective disciplines to access not only OERs in their disciplines, but to share teaching and learning practices in computer science, in IT. Could do it in signal processing, could do it in power and energy, etc. So the tools are there. You've already developed one of them, Henry the other one, through those portals. Those are opportunities to promote the use of OER in specific disciplines. So, but the real question isn't how to do it. The question is how to promote it, the marketing of these things, making people more and more aware. I think your webinar series that we're doing right now is one tool could be used in addressing what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And we can talk, certainly, me, I'd be delighted to talk about this and work on it with you more.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that is over the time that we have for this webinar. Okay. Wait a moment. So it's only to thank you, Sorel, for your presentation, for this debate after the presentation. Thank you again for your contribution to the Education Society and to the open movement in general, as usual. Only to remind you that this webinar has been recorded and that will be published soon on our website. I would like to give thanks to all the attendees and the future ones that visualized this video. Just a reminder about the next webinar. This will be held in May on a date still to be determined. Our guests will be Patrick Kane from Cyprus University Alliance, who will present the reduced version of his workshop, How to Design and Implement an Internet of Things node in 90 minutes or less. So this is a workshop that will be presented in the next Educon conference in 10 days. In the next 10 days, I hope that could be of interest for you. Thank you very much, and see you next time. Thank you
everybody for attending.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.